こんばんは。フォレックス TV ニューヨークのレミダス。3月10日月曜日の為替レポートニューヨークレビューをお伝えします。10日のアメリカ株式市場でダウ工業株30種平均は続落しました。ダウは前週末比153ドル54セント安の 11,740 ドル15セントで終えた。ナスダック総合株価指数は前週末比 43.15 ポイント安の 2169.34 で終えた。先週発表されたアメリカ雇用統計が弱い内容だったことでリセッション警戒が強まり、金融機関への不透明感も強まりました。本日ベアスタンズの流動性危機の噂が市場に広がり、リスク回避の動きが強まりました。ニューヨーク外国為替市場で円相場は大幅続伸しました。ドル円は101円台での取引が続きました。一時ドル円は101円55銭まで上昇しました。ドル円は前週末比90銭円高ドル安の101円70銭から80銭で取引を終えた。ユーロ円は一時156円を割り込みました。ユーロ円は前週末比1円55銭円高ユーロ安の156円5銭から15銭で取引を終えた。それでは IDA グローバルの通貨ストラテジストデイビッド・パールさんとのインタビューをご覧ください。
Well, as we start off the week and shift through the latest developments in the equity as well as commodity markets, let's also talk about the implications of the weakening dollar. Last week we saw the US dollar fall to record lows against the euro as well as the Swiss franc, and we also saw the US dollar index fall to record lows. So first and foremost, if you could tell us any of your concerns about the weakening dollar in the current landscape.
Well, I would say one of the biggest concerns at the present moment in time to do with the weakening dollar is the fact that oil is rallying to offset the weakness in the dollar. Of course, oil is traded in the world market in quoted dollars, as well as all the other major commodities such as gold. So essentially these commodities are rallying to offset the weakness in the dollar, and this is leading to higher levels of inflation around the world, but more notably in the US, where we use the dollar, of course. So it's turned into a bit of a vicious cycle in that the dollar sell-off encourages higher oil, which encourages greater inflationary pressures in the U.S., making it the Fed's job a bit more difficult, and also biting into the spending power of U.S. consumers, as essentially a rise in the price of gas acts like a tax and weighs on non-gas consumption. So it will serve to weaken the economy and raise inflationary pressures, two things which, of course, are not good for the U.S. economy or the Federal Reserve.
Well, indeed, David, in the past few sessions we've been seeing NYMEX crude oil top record highs, and in today's session we saw crude oil hit a high of 108 a barrel, which is hard to believe. And also earlier today, on the heels of Trichet's comments, we saw Eurodollar ease back a little bit, but given that the US dollar has been hitting record or multi-year lows against the major currencies, do you expect to see an intervention from any of the central banks soon?
I don't expect to see intervention from any of the central banks soon. Trichet this morning was on the headlines in Basel, Switzerland, where the G10 central bankers were meeting, indicating that he, as head of the ECB, is of course worried about volatility in the FX markets, and once again stated that he noted with strong interest that the U.S. has stated a strong dollar is in its interest. So he said this before, though, and it really hasn't changed the outlook for intervention. He hasn't really gone up to the next step on the intervention ladder. So essentially, very little has changed, and there are no real threats, especially at a time when the U.S. and the Eurozone are trying to convince China that they have to let the market determine the rate of their currency, as well as other East Asian countries that have pegged their currencies. So it'd be very difficult for the Eurozone or the Japanese or the U.S. to really intervene and put aside the free market determination of currencies at a time when they're trying to force that system on other countries in Asia.
Okay, David, now that we've covered the basics in the FX market, let's take a closer look at euro dollar. We do have the FOMC coming out with their rate announcement next week, and in the near term we do have key U.S. data, including international trade and the ZEW survey in tomorrow's session. So if you could give us your near-term forecast for the euro dollar.
Sure. The conditions remain in place for further dollar weakness. Last Friday we had a high of 154.50 in the aftermath of the very bad jobs report, and that now will act as a level of resistance. But it could give, and we could move to 155. But we see that as being the top of this dollar sell-off, essentially creating a new range for euro dollar over the multi-week horizon of 150 to 155. And of course, the risk is, though, is that we do breach the top of that range and go to 157. But at this stage, it's not really our core scenario, given that 155 is a very strong level of resistance, and that most of the bad news is already priced in to the market. The bad news in terms of the U.S. economic deterioration. So we'd really need some kind of further developments in order for us to break that level.
以上 IDA グローバルの通貨アナリストデイビッド・パウルさんとのインタビューでした。 ForexTV ニューヨークのレミがお伝えしました。最新の為替情報については ForexTV ジャパンをご覧ください。